Switch on.
Is this okay now? So good morning, everyone. I'm Tamara Lorincz, and I'm with the Halifax Peace Coalition, and I'm also with the Canadian Voice of Women for Peace. And I got in touch with the Global Network back in 2003 when Canadian peace activists were mobilizing across the country to prevent our participation with American ballistic missile defense. And I reached out to Bruce, and he provided us a tremendous amount of support. And for 3 years, we worked very hard in Canada to prevent our overt participation in BMD, and we were successful, relatively speaking, in 2005, when in the Canadian Parliament, our parliamentarians had to stand up and say that we weren't going to join American ballistic missile defense. But suddenly there are partnerships on missile defense kind of covertly behind the scenes that we're not proud of. At the outset, I would like to say that I'm very happy to be in your beautiful state of Massachusetts, and being so close to Boston, I must extend congratulations to the Boston Bruins for beating the Vancouver Canucks in the Stanley Cup. But let me say that Marchand on the Bruins is from Hammonds Plains, Nova Scotia. You have many Canadian players. So congratulations. And Canadians are not proud at all of the rioting that took place in Vancouver afterward. I just want you to know that many regular Vancouver citizens participated in a massive cleanup the next day. We are very proud of the fact in 2006 we hosted the World Peace Forum and had the Global Network conference there. So we do share, Canadians and Americans, a passion for hockey, and we do share a passion for peace. But unfortunately in Canada, we're starting to see a greater penchant for militarism and war. Some of you might know that Canadian soldiers are lock, stock, and barrel next to the American military in Operation Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan, and it's Canadian generals actually that are commanding the bombing raid over Libya right now. And some of you also may not know that Canada wasn't overtly part of the coalition of the willing in Iraq, but we were complicit and involved in Iraq in more of a covert way. And there's an excellent publication that was released this past December by the Coalition to Oppose the Arms Trade. This is an Ottawa-based publication that just came out a few months ago, and it's called Operation Silent Partner, Canada's Quiet Complicity in the War in Iraq. So the big news in Canada is that we've just had a federal election. On May 2nd, we voted, 40% of Canadian voters, 29% of the Canadian population voted for a majority Conservative government. This is an extreme right-wing militaristic government. The Prime Minister of Canada, Stephen Harper, was in a minority situation over the last 5 years. But now he has a majority mandate, so he's able now to rubber stamp and push forward everything that he's been wanting to do and hasn't been able to over the last 5 years. And his agenda is extremely militaristic and extremely dangerous for Canada. This is Prime Minister Stephen Harper, who supported, for instance, Bush's war in Iraq and wanted Canada to be a very public partner in the war in Iraq. So let me tell you a little bit about what we expect by our new majority Conservative government. So we are expecting that one of the first things that they're going to be doing is eliminating the long gun registry. This is the backbone of gun control in Canada. This is a government that also introduced very privately and secretly the Canada First Defence Strategy in 2008, which doubled our military budget and which sets us on the course for a spending of $490 billion on the Canadian military over the next 20 years. The Canada First Defence Strategy is a blueprint for a Canadian military-industrial complex like we've never seen before. It's truly a military-industrial academic complex. It's also very much a partnership with the U.S. military. We have very deep integration with the U.S. military, and we pride ourselves actually on interoperability with the U.S. military. And in fact, I think U.S. Americans should start thinking as the Canadian military as a branch, as a command of the U.S. military, because that's the way that we're starting to see our Canadian military. You should know that Canadians were not consulted on the Canada First Defence Strategy. We were not consulted on the doubling of the military budget, and we oppose it. And we oppose Canada's participation in Afghanistan. We oppose Canada's participation in Libya. This is also a government that's planning on spending $30 billion of our tax dollars on Lockheed Martin Joint Strike Fighters. This is a government that also plans to spend $35 billion over the next 20 years for a national shipbuilding procurement strategy. Most of the ships that will be built are combat ships, are destroyers and frigates. This is a government that announced this month that it's looking around the world to set up Canadian military bases. And one of the countries that it indicated interest in is South Korea. This is a government that introduced a budget this month that announced greater support for the aerospace and defense sector and has signaled a new space policy. So we're waiting to find out more details about that. This is a government that has also declared unequivocal support for Israel. This has never happened in Canadian history. We have prided ourselves on being a neutral arbiter for the conflict in the Middle East, and now we are pro-Israel. This is a government that, for instance, ran Lockheed Martin lobbyists as candidates in the last federal election. Thank goodness they were one of the few that didn't get elected. On the local front, I'll tell you that what we're doing as peace activists, we have a national campaign against the stealth fighters. We're working in partnership with Steve Staples and the Rideau Institute. Some of you in the Global Network will know Steve Staples. And we are trying to prevent Canada's purchasing of the Lockheed Martin JSFs. We also continue to protest CanSec and DefSec. These are the arms shows in central Canada and in eastern Canada. We are opposing right now participation in the Canadian census because of Lockheed Martin's involvement in our census. This is three times running now. We also continue to support U.S. war resistors in Canada. We have hundreds of U.S. war resistors in our country. Unfortunately, under the Stephen Harper conservative regime that we have, 3 war resistors have faced deportation orders. 1 is in sanctuary in Vancouver. 2 have been deported and were immediately placed in military imprisonment. And we are trying to do what we can with the war resistor support campaign to protect and keep the other ones in our country. We have a Canadian boat to Gaza that's part of the Freedom Flotilla that will be launched. We continue to oppose Canada's wars in Afghanistan and Libya. We are continuing to call, this is now 7 years running, for a parliamentary inquiry into Canada's participation in the coup in 2004 with the United States and France overthrowing Jean-Bertrand Barristreet in Haiti. And what we are doing in Canada as well, and we're just really starting this. You are much farther ahead than we are on this front, is we are really trying to put in people's conscience and put forward as a solution to this increasing militarism that we're seeing in our country, a green peace economy, this concept of a green peace economy as a solution. And the way that we should be spending our money. We're spending 26% of our budget on the military now in Canada. And we want to see a green peace economy solution that will, eliminate poverty in Canada, take action on climate change, and really upscale renewable energy. Because some of you may know that Canada is the source of the dirtiest oil, the dirtiest energy in the world with the Alberta oil sands. This is an ecological and social catastrophe, and any assistance you can provide in saying no to your country, buying Canadian oil would be welcome. And you should know that every single pipeline in our country goes south. Canada has no national energy security. We have no pipelines that run east to west. They're all running south. So in closing, I would like to say that militarism is sadly, unfortunately, on the rise in our country. We are truly entering a dark period because This is a government that we have tried for many years to reason with, to rationalize with, and we cannot. So we are facing something, very new in Canada, where we are going to be having to engage in nonviolent direct action and civil disobedience at a scale that we have never had to engage in before. And as a peace activist with a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old, I have to say that really troubles me. Now, some of you might be saying, but Tamara, you have a social democratic opposition for the first time in your history. You've just elected the first Green Party candidate in your history. Well, they are in a minority position. Our majority Conservative government can rubber stamp anything. And the other sad thing is that on Tuesday of this week, the Parliament of Canada voted for, except for one person, they all almost unanimous support for the extension, a 3-month extension to Canada's bombardment of Libya. The only dissent was not from the Social Democratic opposition. The only dissent was Elizabeth May and the Green Party, the only Green Party member of Canada right now, member of the Canadian Parliament right now.